This week, we go from weak and not having a backbone to getting a lot more serious, almost emo, almost goth, and being able to take our emotions and with a lot more seriousness, being able to put them somewhere because one, we have the sun in Libra making a square to Pluto and Capricorn, and then the sun is going to go into Scorpio, which completely changes the vibe throughout the rest of the winter as we get ready for the Mars retrograde in Leo and in Cancer. And this week, as the sun goes into Scorpio, it's going to be a really good time to get a lot more deep with our intentions and the why as to why we're doing things. Because when the sun was in Libra, we had that weak willpower. We weren't willing to put up a fight. But this week, we're actually going to be putting up that fight. So let's go ahead and get started talking about it. Welcome back to the Astrology Report. My name is Cam White, and this time we're talking about October 21st through October 27th of 2024. And if you like staying up to date with all of the transiting astrology and knowing exactly how to use it to your best advantage, feel free to subscribe below as well. Here soon, we are going to be launching the planets module over on my website. If you're not familiar, on my website, I teach astrology and I teach it in the most affordable and the most unique way pretty much out there. And we're getting close to wrapping up the zodiac part of it, where we went deep into every single part of the zodiac. In fact, the other day, I just got done recording a lecture on the fixed stars. So if you want to know more about the fixed stars, I have a course on that. If you want to know why the zodiac signs are related to the seasons, I have a whole course on that. If you want to know what precession is, I have a whole course on that. Or I should not say course, I have lectures on that. So if you want to learn astrology in the most affordable way, go ahead and check that out. As well, we do have monthly rising sign horoscopes on there. So if you want to know how October and November are going to be affecting you, make sure you check that out. But let's go ahead and get started. So we're starting Monday off on October 21st with the moon making a conjunction to Jupiter in Gemini. Then the moon will be making a square to Neptune. So what I like about this is seeing the bigger picture, but a lot of this is just kind of like learning something, right? Like the moon is in Gemini, and something that I've been trying to coach people on is be more curious about stuff. Like rather than being like, oh, I have to learn it this way or I have to do things this way, be curious and be open. And when you can be playful and have a playful attitude about things, it makes things a lot more easier. Like versus being like, oh, I'm doing this wrong and I have to stress out about something. Like just be open-minded, be curious. That's what this moon conjoining Jupiter and Gemini is really good for. So this is good for learning something new, but as the moon then makes a square to Neptune, we are going to feel a little bit of confusion. We are going to feel a little bit of a sense of feeling overwhelmed. You know, the moon's in Gemini squaring Neptune, and it reminds me of how everybody nowadays is like, oh, there's so much misinformation in the world, and, you know, what do we know that's true and not true, and AI and stuff like that. And it's just the moon in Gemini making a square to Neptune is that there's so much information that it can become overwhelming, and we can be confused over what is real and what's not real. And my piece of advice for this is you don't have to make a decision about what's real and what's not real right now, meaning take it for what it is and take everything as a grain of salt until genuinely something is in your face and it's so real. You don't have to make a decision of what's real and what's not. And I look at the moon in Gemini making a square to Neptune and Pisces as there's always more information to consume. There's always more information to learn. Like if you are questioning what is real and what is going to work and what's not, go ahead and do some more research. That's always available to you. But the biggest thing is don't feel like you have to feel overwhelmed. Like the moon is our emotions, it's our body. And when it's in Gemini, it's a little bit all over the place. It's like we had too much caffeine. We have maybe a little bit too much anxiety. We're not grounded all that much. And with it squaring Neptune, we're just a little bit all over the place. Like try to slow down a little bit, try to take information in bite-sized pieces and don't be overwhelmed if you don't exactly know everything. But what's nice is then the moon moves into Cancer. And this is where we do get a little bit more focused on sensitivity. Now, the moon going into Cancer while, Mercury's in Cancer, Mars is in Cancer, we're getting a little bit more focused on our emotions and being more sensitive, but it's the moon in Cancer. It's really focusing on what do we need to prioritize? What do we need to protect? Where do we need to nourish ourselves? And that might be a little bit more difficult right now because Mars is in Cancer. But I think as this vibe shift happens on Monday's a little bit more about prioritizing, again, the things that we need to take care of and not necessarily getting started on big, new, exciting projects, but more like, okay, this week we're doing things that we need to absolutely take care of. But the first highlight that we get on Monday is Mercury making a trine to Saturn. And I love this because this is deep intuitive knowledge. Mercury is in Scorpio. What I like about Mercury in Scorpio is just we just pick up on shit with Mercury in Scorpio. You ever been able to just read a vibe? And what I mean by read a vibe, I mean you could see how someone's communicating and talking, their body language and where their eyes are going. I love seeing where people's eyes go because that's how I could just exactly know what they're thinking. Mercury in Scorpio is, I think, number one, just deep intuitive knowledge. But the Mercury trine Saturn, I think, is being able to address it, being able to communicate it in a very fatherly kind of a way. But the other way I look at Mercury trine Saturn is if Saturn is, again, we have to be more disciplined, more serious, have better boundaries, have more responsibility over the internal part of our belief system, like the yin part of us, the more receptive part of our belief system, the sponge part of us. Mercury in Scorpio trining Saturn is being able to pick up where our sensitivities are. Like, hey, this is a like, for example, if you hire like a security team to do like an analysis around your like place of business or your home, they can be like, this is a what's the word I'm looking for here? This is an attack vector. Like Mercury and Scorpio trining Saturn and Pisces is, I think, a really good way of looking at like attack vectors for you. Like, hey, where are you actually not all that protected? Where can you actually be a little bit more fortified? Where can you actually be a little bit more aware of what energy you're pulling in and sucking in, or what energy is making you feel stuck? What energy is limiting you here? And I think Mercury and Scorpio is just an excellent time to pay attention to your surroundings in terms of like, I'm speaking more on an internal way right now, and picking up on what like you need to be more aware of. And not even like, because again, what I like about Mercury and Scorpio is that it's so like, it's intuitive. It just comes out of nowhere. Like it may not even be anything that happens per se, but it's just kind of like, oh, like I just realized that. Mercury trine Saturn is definitely going to be, damn, did I just say Mercury trine Neptune? If I said Mercury trine Neptune, I didn't mean to. I meant Mercury trine Saturn. Mercury trine Saturn is a serious conversation. It will probably go well, but it is a serious conversation nonetheless with someone if you are going to have a conversation with someone. But then we get to Tuesday, and Tuesday we're going to have the sun as our highlight. Our first highlight is the sun in Libra making a square to Pluto in Capricorn. And then our second highlight is the sun then goes into Scorpio. And then we will have the moon in Cancer making a trine to Saturn and Mercury. Villain arc begins here. The sun in Libra squaring Pluto in Capricorn is you thinking that if you play by the rules, justice will be served. And this is reality is you will not. Justice will not be served if you play by the rules. There's a difference between being moral and integral and ethical, and understanding that you think you're going to get the best situation because you played by the rules and you played nice and you played fair. That's not how things work. For example, I have this argument with my mom all the time about living situation stuff. And because of what I do, and this was before even like when it came to getting a house, before like I was successful astrologer and just trying to figure it out, I lied on every single rental application about like the kind of income I made or the job that I had, because I needed a house. Because it didn't matter if I had those things. They're like, well, this was back, nowadays it's like they just rent to anybody, but you needed a lot more to get into places. And my mom would be like, well, don't lie, Cameron, that's bad. I'm like, Mom, I need a fucking place to live. I don't have a choice but to lie on the application. I need to live somewhere. You know what I mean? Like, and she's not letting me crash on her couch. She'll never let me move back in. So I don't have a choice. But I look at the sun in Libra squaring Pluto and Capricorn as this kind of like, if you think that you're just going to like play by the rules and everything's just going to go good and you're just going to go, excuse me, like I played by the rules. I did everything nice. Everything should go my way. Like, no, that's not how it works. But I also look at the sun squaring Pluto as there's going to be this tension with power. And I don't want you to be afraid. Like the sun in Libra is like, hey, you need to be balanced. You need to be diplomatic. You don't need to be corrupt and evil. I'm not saying do that at all. But I think having the innocence, having this idea that, it is literally an innocent take of, I played by the rules. I did everything nice. Like you may not actually get what you need a lot of the times. And that's not to say that, again, that you should be evil or you should be corrupt. But there's kind of a like, hey, like you need to understand the rules of the game here a little bit more. And I look at the sun squaring Pluto as kind of like getting burned a little bit. Do you remember when you were young and you were innocent and sweet and you just thought everything was good in the world? And then there was something that happened one day. Maybe like for me, I think it was like when I went to middle school, and the first time I ever saw someone shoot up heroin was in middle school. I think that's when I kind of was like, what the fuck? Like I think it was like 11. That's what the sun in Libra squaring Pluto is. It's like, oh, your innocence kind of goes, and then the sun goes into Scorpio. And it's time to be a little bit edgy. The winter arc, the villain arc begins with the sun going into Scorpio. And what I love about this is now that the sun is in Scorpio, Mars is in Cancer, Saturn's in Pisces, we got all this water stuff. The sun is fixated. The sun is our willpower and our identity, our vitality. It is weakened by Mars in Cancer, but that is okay because by the time the sun leaves Scorpio, Mars will be in Leo. What I like about sun in Scorpio is I want you to get lockjaw about something. Like, for example, like one of my favorite stories are like when people get dumped by like when guys get dumped by their girl, and then they're like, now I need to be super successful. Now I need to be like super hot and rich. And now I need to like, they just like do all this stuff, and they do it in spite, which isn't like the best motivator, or like revenge, but like that revenge energy. Like that's what I love about Scorpios. Like it can be so motivating, like pain and resentment can be so motivating. And that's what I want you, like, that's how I want you to get into this week. That's why I'm calling it like villain arc. I've been struggling with the title of this weekly, but it's the villain arc moment. I want you to feel the revenge. And again, I don't want you to take out revenge on someone, but I want you to feel that revenge energy as a motivating factor because it's so powerful. And oftentimes in life, there's so many things that take away our energy and take away our power. And when something can give us that energy and that power, we can transmute it into something good for us. We should. And that sun in Scorpio is like, get serious, get lockjaw. I don't care what the motivation is, as long as it's motivating you to be a better version of yourself, to get out of the situation that you're in. Like how bad, you know what I love about Scorpio stuff is, for me, one of the biggest motivating factors ever in my life was when I had to throw away everything when I had bed bugs. I was at the poorest I'd ever been. I didn't have I literally had almost no money for food. I was begging my manager for a free meal at work every day. I had to throw everything away on Christmas because of bed bug infestation. Long story short, I got to a point, I got so fucking real with myself that I said, I'm never, ever, ever gonna feel this again. I'm never gonna do it again. I refuse. If I can't do it. Like there's certain things in this world, like I'm pretty cool about, I can't do bugs. If this is a nice apartment. This is a really nice apartment. If I saw a bed bug, I would leave this place within 12 hours. I would leave everything. I would probably throw away everything. I do not fucking play that game anymore. I don't care how much it costs. I don't care what I have to do. I don't care where I have to go. I'm not playing that game. I think of the sun in Scorpio and Mars in Cancer is, this sucks. Don't ever feel like this again. What do you have to do to never feel like this again? And does it actually suck enough for you to do something about it? Because if it doesn't suck enough, then it's not bad enough. Is this bad enough for you right now? Do you want to make the changes in your life? Or could it get worse? Are you comfortable with this? And be real with yourself. You're not comfortable with this. You're not comfortable with the bullshit that's going on in your life. How much more is it going to take? Use this as a motivating factor. You know, it kind of reminds me of there's like a meme format for this, but it's like the nerdy billionaires that made a bunch of money. It's like, well, they can never get a girl. And that was like, well, if they can't get a girl, then they're going to make like $1 billion out of vengeance. What a motivating factor. What a motivating factor pain and resentment is. Where is the pain point in your life right now? Does your life fucking suck? And again, here's where I'm different than where a lot of people are going to say is, if your life sucks, don't be a victim. Everything in your power to make a change from it. I'm listening to a lot of motivational videos lately. This guy's talking about being homeless, going without a meal for 3 fucking days a week. You know, he's a millionaire now. Like, I'm fucking sick of the victim mentality people have. And if you want to be a victim, this is going to be a tough week. You're going to eat a lot of shit this week and you're going to feel sorry for yourself. And I'm not going to feel sorry for you. If you want to be a victim and that, oh, well, everything happens to me and I'm just a piece of paper in the fucking wind, just getting blown around and pushed around wherever, that's what this week's going to be like for you. But if you want to feel this pain, if you want to understand that this sucks and understand that you actually are capable of changing it, you are a human being, you are a divine piece of consciousness alive that is more powerful than the material world, and you tap into that, you can. It's available to you. You've just got to want it. You've got to feel pain enough to say, I don't ever want to feel this pain again. I don't ever want to feel this way again. And it's going to fucking hurt. You've got to, and here's the difference too. It's not only it's going to hurt, you have to understand how bad it actually hurts. You know what I hate about watching the show Hoarders? Is that sometimes when I watch Hoarders, it seems as if those people for the first time realize how bad their situation is. And that's really fucking sad. Sometimes we just normalize how bad of a situation is. Like, how fucked up are your beliefs? Do you really think you can't have love? Do you really think you can't be successful? Do you really think there's so many little tiny beliefs that you guys have that are genuinely really horrible and they're not true and they make me feel bad for you, but I can't do anything about it. But you have to recognize that oh, maybe my belief system is actually really shitty. And it's not oh, it's really shitty, it could be better. It's wow, I'm harming myself thinking this way and I don't have to anymore. I want you guys on Tuesday to feel it. The moon is going to be in Cancer and it's going to trine Saturn and Mercury. I think there's this level of connection to what is important. What do we have to protect? What do we have to defend? Moon is going to be trining Mercury. There's this, again, intuitive deepness to our emotions that we're tapping into. And the moon's trining Saturn. There's a lot of this water sign stuff, getting really serious about how we feel. It starts this week, guys. And then we get to Wednesday. On Wednesday, the moon's going to still be in Cancer and it's going to conjoin Mars and then make a sextile to Uranus. And then the moon is going to make a trine to Neptune and go opposite Pluto. So like I said, when the moon is making these aspects to the outer planets, it's going to be a little bit of an emotional pinball. But the moon makes a conjunction to Mars, then sextiles Uranus, trines Neptune, goes opposite Pluto. The moon conjoining Mars just seems like an emotional lash out to me, which sometimes we need. I think I think society would be a lot healthier if people had a better relationship to anger, meaning that there was more healthy ways and more of accepting ways to channel anger. I think a lot of people are angry at things in this world because they're allowed, because there's only so, like, again, I think a lot of people are angry at Trump because it's one of the only things people are allowed to be angry at. You're not allowed to express anger emotion because it's toxic masculinity or whatever. But I really look at the moon conjoining Mars in Cancer as a lash out. Don't be afraid to lash out. Don't be afraid to get fucking pissed off at something. It's okay. It's an emotion. It's a feeling. Like, don't resist it. Because if you resist that feeling, it's going to turn into something really bad. It's going to turn into a fucking health issue, actually, more than likely. I also look at the moon conjoining Mars as taking care of vulnerabilities. But then the moon will make a sextile to Uranus. Like, moon conjoining Mars is like, this really sucks. I have to take care of this issue. Moon sextiles Uranus. Cool. Random solution comes up. Moon trines Neptune. Like, okay. Like, maybe I was reading into that situation too much. Maybe I'm reading into the situation a little bit too much. Like, Neptune is creating stories. The moon in Cancer is like, our feelings are really powerful right now. So it's trining Neptune. So we're making up all these stories, and the moon goes opposite Pluto. That turns into this fear, and we have to address this fear. So it's kind of a lot. I would really argue Wednesday is kind of a lot. And it's like one of those days. You ever have one of those days that's like a lot internally, but nothing like really actually fucking happened to you? You were just all over the place. That's Wednesday. We get to Thursday, and the moon then goes into Leo, and it's going to make a trine to Venus and Sag. And we also have a highlight, which is Mars sextiles Uranus. Boy, Thursday is not Wednesday. I'll tell you that much. Thursday's making me feel better just talking about it, to be honest with you. It's feeling good. It's feeling good. It's feeling hot. It's feeling dangerous. Like, moon in Leo, I think there's a lot of, like, again, like, putting your emotions out there, feeling confident. It's trining, Venus and Sag, feeling a little bit confident, feeling a little bit sexy. It's very bold. There's something about Thursday that I just think you're going to be feeling good about, and I think you should really harness that energy, feel that energy. One of the other things, though, is that Mars sextiles Uranus, which this is one of 3 sextiles we'll get during the Mars retrograde. I didn't talk about it in the Mars retrograde video because there's just too much to talk about with the Mars retrograde, but it's one of 3. It's very inventive. It has something to do with, again, like, fixing an issue, being inventive, being playful. Like, Mars is in Cancer right now, right? Like, there's a little bit of problems going on. Like, this doesn't feel good. Mars sextiling Uranus is having an innovative solution to the problem. And it's not like Mars trine Uranus where it's like, yes, we have figured out the problem. We have figured out the solution. It's like, oh, what if we just, tried this? Let's just try this for a minute. Let's have an innovative solution to this that might just get us through this moment. That's what that is. So I really like Thursday, and I think the moon in Leo trining Venus is like that level of confidence that we have. Feeling a lot better, not as much emotional turmoil as we will feel on Wednesday, and we feel better on Thursday is what's going to help us fix that, get that solution and fix that issue on Thursday. So again, I think Thursday is really important to feel good, feel confident, because that's going to give us the ability to address the issues and to fix these issues. And so then we get to Friday, and the moon, while it's in Leo, is going to make a square to Mercury in Scorpio, and it's going to sextile Jupiter. And one of the notes I wrote was "Go off, King." The moon in Leo squaring Mercury in Scorpio is like, it's that moment. I can't think of a movie example, but there's a movie example where someone just starts spouting off shit of, like, everyone's secrets. Like, the things that people don't want to address, the things that people are insecure about. The moon in Leo squaring Mercury in Scorpio is like, fuck you. Why do you feel that way? Like, that's annoying. Don't do that. And the moon sextiling Jupiter in Gemini, it's like oversharing. It's like having me at a party where I don't know the boundaries of, like, what people are comfortable with talking about or not. And I'm like, I don't really care. Like, just be your, like, there's nothing not comfortable to talk about. There's arguments. There's no one wins, and don't get caught up in it. The moon in Leo squaring Mercury in Scorpio is like, you are feeling prideful. You are feeling like the center of attention. And it's squaring Mercury in Scorpio where you're like, you know what? I'm just going to say it. But Mercury in Scorpio is going to lash out and say something back. And the moon is sextiling Jupiter. I think when it comes to arguments and communications with people, try not to get in an argument. And if you do, try to know when to back out. Try to know when to just put a pause on it. I think, though, if it's not an argument or a communication with someone, I think a really interesting way to look at it is, like, the moon in Leo wants to feel, again, courageous, bold, proud, but it's squaring Mercury in Scorpio where you're like, that's lame. I'm not allowed to feel cool. I have to feel, not cool. And so there's kind of like this mental tension, I think, on Friday in terms of, like, what we're allowed to do and what we're not allowed to do with ourselves. And the moon is going to make a sextile to Jupiter in Gemini. So I think what this is good for is, again, being curious, being access to information. So rather than, like, having, like, the moon in Leo is in a fixed sign, Mercury and Scorpio is in a fixed sign, they're not working all that well together, right? But the moon is sextiling Jupiter, where it's like, hey, be curious, be open-minded. You don't have to make a decision about how things are supposed to be right now. Then we get to Saturday, and the moon, while it's in Leo, is then going to make a square to Uranus, and then the moon's going to move into Virgo. And the first thing I wrote here was, you're going to get thrown off your groove a little bit with the moon in Leo squaring Uranus. I don't know how much more it's going to throw you off than like just the moon making a square to Mercury, and then the moon makes a square to Uranus. It's a lot of tension. It's a lot of resistance here. But what is nice is the moon goes into Virgo. So there's going to be a lot of like keeping the show going. Like, if you know anything about performing, the show doesn't stop. You got to keep it going. And the moon being in Virgo, it's just time to get organized, time to get a little bit more focused. What I like about this is I like the sun in Scorpio and the moon in Virgo together. There's a level of like sadistic level focus. Like, do you ever have like, there's times where you like, clean your floors, but then there's other times where you take a toothbrush and you like go into every single line of grout and you obsess over it. That's the sun in Scorpio, moon in Virgo. It's like my favorite time, where it's like we become sadistically obsessive with these tiny details, and we just like dig a tunnel to it, and we like look up after like people are like, "What are you doing?" You're like, "What do you mean what I'm doing?" Like I'm cleaning the grout with a toothbrush. You don't clean the grout with a toothbrush? Like that's the level of crazy we're going. And then we get to Sunday, and on Sunday is when the moon is in Virgo, making a square to Venus in Sagittarius, and then it's going to go opposite Saturn. Sunday's a little harsh, in a weird way, because the moon in Virgo squaring Venus in Sag is like, I don't want you to get so picky that you can't have fun. Like Venus in Sag is supposed to just be like letting loose, being a little wild, and the moon in Virgo is like, like, like if you're gonna go out to the club, there's gonna be gross liquids on the floor. You can't be like, like, it's gross. Like, it's just how it's gonna be. The moon squaring Venus, I like the moon contacting Venus, right? So the moon contacting Venus is good for going out, good for having fun, but it's a square, and it's Venus and it's the moon in Virgo, where being too orderly, being too organized, being too picky is going to kill the vibe of Venus. However, I would say that because the moon is in Virgo and superior square to Venus in Sagittarius, where again, I don't want you to be too picky, but it might be worth your while to kind of just give a little bit, tiny bit of a plan ahead. So Venus and Sag isn't just like going off into the night and figuring out where to go. I think on Sunday, just being able to like, hey, I want to have fun, but let me just do let me just get the Virgo out of me just a little bit, like a little bit of a plan, a little bit of an idea, but not overboard. Because then the moon is going to go opposite Saturn, and there's going to be this like not having to know when to stop. The moon is in Virgo. It's like, oh, I really want to organize. And Saturn Pisces, like, you need to slow down on that. Like that's an anxiety response. You actually don't need to. How can you let go of control over the situation? That might be something interesting. And that's Sunday. But guys, next week, Venus squares Saturn, Mars trines Neptune, Mercury goes opposite Uranus, Mercury trines Neptune, we get the new moon in Scorpio, Mercury trines Mars, Mercury enters Sagittarius, Mars goes opposite Pluto, Venus goes opposite Jupiter, Mars goes into Leo, and the sun trines Saturn. So what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 major transits next week. This week, let's bring it in. Let's get focused. Let's feel something. Because next week is one thing after another. And this is what I want you to get deep this week, because next week as we get into November, we go from deep emotional turmoil to like excitement, big picture, not giving a fuck energy. So that's what I'm going to leave you guys with. Like I said, let me know in the comments below what you're excited for, what you're not. Like this video if you like it again. And again, if you want to keep up to date with all the trends that are going on, make sure you subscribe, and I'll be seeing you guys next week.